What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday night. We're here with our off-season stream times going live at 9:30, a little bit after 9:30 tonight. Had to cook up the thumbnail for you, but this is basically our first official off-season Blazers Uprise Live episode. We did post-game shows for the playing games, which obviously didn't go as planned. The Blazers lose the Pelicans pick because the Pelicans pick goes to Charlotte. It ended up at 15 because the Pelicans played their way into the playoffs. But Eric supposedly has some news for us. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to be upfront. I don't know what it is. So I'm curious. I have an inkling, but I'm curious to see what Eric has to share with us because I'm in the same boat as you guys. I just made the thumbnail with a random player. Don't even look at that player and try and guess who it is, all right? Don't even waste your time.
I just spoiled it in chat.
Yeah. Don't even waste your time with that. It was Miles Bridges. I figured maybe we'll see if one of you gets that right, but that was just a random player that I threw in that. Anyway, Eric, what's going on, man? How's your Monday?
It's all right. Got a few sick kiddos that had to stay home from school today, but other than that, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that sucks. Hopefully they feel better. Yeah. It's been good, man. Just been working, just been driving around, and that's pretty much it. Watched a little bit of that Mavs Jazz game. Kevin Calabro was on the call, and he sounded like he was having the time of his life compared to his commentary the second half
having
of the
to sugarcoat like 30 games in a row wasn't fun.
Yeah, exactly. So he was on the call, sounding good, man. Dallas ends up beating Utah, so that series is tied at 1-1. It looks like Golden State's going to go up 2-0, and Philadelphia's up 2-0 over the Raptors. So anyway, thank you to everybody for making us a part of your Monday night. I'll have another video uploaded tomorrow. Today I uploaded a Monday mailbag, so definitely go check that out if you want. I don't know what information from the mailbag is about to be outdated due to Eric. We shall see. But it's a good 20-minute mailbag.
So I saw your title of it, and I was like, oh no. Sorry, this is going to be bad. And then,
well, see, Eric told me earlier in the day before I dropped the video that he had something for tonight, and he was like, I'm going to wait to tell you when you're on the stream. Yeah. So with that title, not my fault.
But then I watched it, and it wasn't too bad. You actually did a pretty good job of explaining things. So
yeah, see, I knew people would click on that title. It's just good old YouTuber stuff. I knew people would click on that if that was the topic. So I don't know how much you want to tease the people before we actually talk about whatever you have for us.
No, I mean, let's give the people what they want.
Okay, so what have you heard? All right, I'm curious. I'm in the same boat as you guys, chat, in case you just tuned in. What do you got, Eric?
So this isn't going to surprise anyone because it's a target we know is the most likely outcome of this offseason. But I learned some new information regarding it that makes me think that it is 100% luck. Now, I want to give the disclaimer, as always, I'm not trying to be the next Woj like certain other people do. I'm not trying to say I'm better than anyone or have inside sources and I'm not going to tell you guys or whatever.
Yep, or else you'd be flexing this on Twitter right now, probably. Instead, he's just waiting for the second channel.
And so I heard this from two completely separate people that gave different parts to a story that confirmed the other parts of the other people's story. And then I ran it by a third person that I trust, who would usually tell me no if I'm on the wrong track on something. And I got the can't say wink wink type answer, right? And so this isn't, like I said, it's not going to shock anyone, but the details of it are pretty concrete. Okay, so
is this good or bad, or should I be gripping my chair right now, Eric?
Well, I mean, considering neither of us want this player, it's not necessarily good, but it's almost a lock that we are getting Jeremy Grant.
Okay.
And it can't come out, obviously, because it's tampering or whatever, and it's still kind of dependent on some things with the lottery and things like that. But apparently, Dame and Jeremy Grant are already working out together. So they're already doing it. And Jeremy Grant has done a complete 180. He wants to be in Portland next season. This is the only team he wants to be traded to. And now there's a couple of reasons why he can make that happen. So the first is that he apparently has some sort of handshake agreement with Detroit that if he did want to get traded, that they would accommodate him as part of him choosing them over Denver or whatever. So he does feel like Detroit owes him at least a chance to be traded as long as the offer's relatively close between teams or whatever, kind of similar to what we did with CJ. And then the second thing is he is at the point where he's going to refuse or tell teams that he will not sign an extension if they trade for him to leverage those teams into not wanting to give up much for him, which can mean that the Blazers, even though we got screwed out of the Pelicans pick, could find their way into still giving the best offer with the Milwaukee first and the Blazers 36th pick, which is close enough to 2 firsts. I know it's like a horrible first and a late second. I mean, an early second, not a first. Mm-hmm. And then we'll probably have to throw in some other stuff like a Keon Johnson and maybe some other second rounders to make up the difference. But this is seeming like it's already a done deal. Dame's already out there talking about Grant as being a part of the team next year, and that's going to be moving forward. It looks like we could get lucky enough to get it for the Milwaukee pick and some other like kind of secondary stuff.
I mean, if he wants to be in Portland, cool, I guess. I don't know what role he envisions playing here. If that's true, and we still have to give up the Milwaukee first, Keon Johnson, the 36th pick, and extra seconds, I still feel like that's giving up a ton.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then that's still a lot to give up for him, because Keon Johnson, he's a first round value, so you're giving up him, who's a quote first round value pick, a future first round value pick, a very early second, and then multiple seconds. That's an overpay for Jeremy Grant, especially if it's a situation where he's leveraging this opportunity. And then if it's a situation where I could see Detroit wanting cap space to go after Jalen Brunson, I don't know if that plays a part in this, but I know that went after him at the deadline.
Yeah, that was the other, I forgot to mention that we're one of the few teams that can take Grant that would want him. The other teams that could do this probably aren't going to give up anything for him. So we're one of the few teams who could offer that cap relief to Detroit as well.
I mean, if he wants to be here and it's just the Milwaukee first, at that point, I'd just say, okay, screw it, whatever, let's see. I still think it just comes down to value, because my biggest issue with him was he didn't want to play for a winning team. He wanted to be in Detroit and be the man. That's why he turned down Denver and signed with Detroit for the same exact contract, as he wanted to go somewhere and be the man. I still have reservations about his upcoming contract extension next summer, because this is going to be his last year on contract.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because to me, him saying he's going to leverage other teams to not sign means he is going to sign with us, right? If he gets traded here.
Yeah.
Which means we're going to offer him that extension if we trade for him, right?
Yeah, but what is that number?
I know, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be pretty, and that's part of the problem. And just let me make one thing clear. This is not what I said at the beginning. I do not want Jeremy Grant on this team. I don't think he's the right option at the forward spot for what we need our forwards to do. But it seems pretty logical, and everything we've heard leading up to this information fits basically with this too. So, yeah, I'm afraid it's going to be in the $25 million range. And the problem with that is we heard about how we had to give up all this stuff for free now, basically, to clear the books and have all this flexibility. Yeah. But then we're going to turn around and offer that, like, ruin all that flexibility for one player that's not even a star level player. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because that puts us right after we re-sign Nurk and Ant. It's going to be right back into the situation where we were before, right? We're going to be, fighting the luxury tax and questionable whether we have the full mid-level exception and stuff. We probably can make it work, but depends on how much we pay Nurk and Ant in those scenarios. If we re-sign Ingles, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plans out contract-wise, but it's looking like we're going to do something. Now, I was worried that we would include Nas, that now that we didn't have our first-round pick.
Yeah.
But what I heard is that Dame mentioned him, Nurk, Ant, and Nas as like the core of the team, right?
Yeah.
And that I also heard from someone else that Billups just loves Nas and he thinks he can become that, defender / do everything type of wing that other teams have that are successful. So I'm getting the impression that they would be shocked if Nas was dealt. And of course, if Ant and Nurk weren't re-signed, but we already knew that. And then also, I think those guys are going to be the core of the team. And then you add Grant and maybe our draft pick. But the only thing I'm worried about is if the pick falls to like 8, maybe giving up that instead of that other stuff, which I think would be a huge mistake. But that would be the only thing I'm worried about. So that's why I'm praying that we move up into the top 4, so then it won't matter because we're obviously not trading a top 4 pick for Jeremy Grant. So
8th for Jeremy Grant, and Cronin's just oh god, yeah, I don't trust Cronin, man. Let me just say that right now. Like if he is potentially willing to trade the 8th overall pick in this year's draft for Jeremy Grant, then I heavily question. Like, I'm already questioning him at this point, but if that's truly the case, that's disgusting. And so fingers crossed it's not the case.
And I know you feel the same way, but I do not like Jeremy Grant at the 3, but it sounds like if they did get one of the top 3 picks that they would have no problem playing Grant at the 3 in that situation. So I don't know.
I mean, Cleveland got away this year playing Mobley with Allen and then Markkanen at the 3. If we had Chet in Nurk, maybe we could get away playing Jeremy Grant at the 3. I mean, if Markkanen can play the 3 next to Mobley and Allen, then I feel like Jeremy Grant can be okay at the 3 defensively next to Chet in Nurk. I mean, I haven't watched enough Cleveland, so I don't know how they made it work, but you have a lot of size if you have Grant at the 3 and then Chet at the 4 and Nurkic at the 5. You got a lot of length in there, so I feel like you might be able to make that work. I just don't know who your on-ball stopper is in that lineup because that's not Jeremy Grant's defensive strength, is playing on-ball defense. He's more of a team defender. He's kind of Rocco-ish in that regard. And then, I don't think Chet's going to come in and, lock up guys on the perimeter one-on-one. I think he'll be fine in that area, which is why I'm intrigued by him. 7'1", can play the 4, has a ton of length. But who's the on-ball stopper in that lineup? That's my question. That is absolutely my question.
Yep, and just to clear up a couple things, once again, we're not advocating for this trade. We're just telling you what we think is or I'm telling you what I've heard is going to happen. I mean, it still could fall apart. Nothing's guaranteed, I guess, at this point, since it's not official yet. But, so the other thing is why we don't like Grant. Tori just touched upon it a little bit. His defensive metrics for on-ball defense have been terrible. We know that having non-on-ball defenders at the 3 and the 4 with a smaller backcourt has not worked. So the whole point of switching things up were to get better on-ball defenders. Now he's got he's long and athletic, I guess. So that kind of fits that criteria, but we wanted, or I think we need different types of defenders. And to me, he's more suited as a Rocco role as an off-ball defender than an on-ball defender. And if you're going to try to overcome your backcourt being average or below average defensively, I think you need better on-ball defenders on the perimeter. It also helps Nurk become more of a rim protector, in my opinion. The better the 3 and the 4 are at rim protection or at perimeter defense. And so, yeah, all those things kind of mix to me. And then you combine that with Grant being maybe the worst rebounder for his position in the NBA. And that's a lot of, so terrible on-ball defender and terrible rebounder are not two things I like to talk about when I'm talking about a forward in the NBA. So I do not like.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one positive with playing him at the 3 is his rebounding is more acceptable at that spot. At the 4, he's definitely a very poor rebounder. It depends on what they give up in the trade.
Yeah.
And it depends on who they get as the other starting forward. Like, if you had OG Anunoby and then Grant wants to come here and he's willing to, play a more suitable role for the team, then I'm sitting there like, okay, But the thing is you can only use the trade player exception on one of them. You'd have to match salary for the other. You can't get them both, right? I'm just saying, like, a lockdown perimeter defender at the 3, it would be okay having Grant at the 4, especially if that 3 could rebound. But that's where I wonder, like, what their plans are for Nas. Like, if they think Nas, because Nas is a good rebounder, and Nas has graded out as a good on-ball defender. I wonder if that's their plan, is to combine both those guys and then just challenge Nas to be the lockdown defensive guy in that starting lineup, and then hope that his rebounding makes up for Grant's lack of rebounding at the 4. It's just, I mean, you still have a lottery pick to factor in, though. So it's I wonder if their plan is to maybe go Shaedon Sharpe, if they plan on starting Nas and Jeremy Grant, go with the long-term upside guy who's maybe not ready to start right away, and some guy that you don't have to start right away. I wonder if that maybe is a guy they have their eye on, because I don't see how you can. I don't know. It's just weird making everything fit. Go ahead.
Well, that's why I said earlier that it's kind of lottery dependent, because obviously we moved up into the top 3. Those guys are going to get minutes right away, seemingly. I at least hope so. Something's wrong probably if they don't, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if we stay in the 6-7 range and we get Sharpe, I agree with you that that's probably the most likely play there. Unfortunately for him, if he declares, I feel like it's a situation where...
Hasn't he already declared?
I thought he did, but then there was some rumors today that he still hadn't made up his mind, and he enrolled in classes for summer and fall and stuff. So, it's kind of up in the air. But here's the thing with Sharpe, though. Like, I think for him to fall to 6 or 7, he's going to have to either not measure well or not work out well. So if he measures well and has good workouts for teams, I think it's going to be really hard for him not to go 5 in that scenario, right? So if he's there on the board at 6 or 7, we traded for Grant, and we feel comfortable with Nas at the starting 3, like it seems the team is, then I'd take just the long-term flyer on whatever prospect has the highest upside, right? So Sharpe for sure. If we fall to like 8 and Sharpe's not on the board and we have Nas and Jeremy Grant, I feel like then it might come into play, like thinking about taking Jalen Duren or someone like that. To where we shore up another big man. Duren can maybe play a little forward too, kind of similar to what Bam does. And so maybe you can get away with that. He has the potential to be a good perimeter defense for a center, perimeter defender. So maybe you make up for some of the on-ball issues for Jeremy Grant with that.
I don't. I don't know about that. I think. I mean, if Duren could shoot, I'd be more on board with that, but I don't trust him to go out as a rookie and defend the perimeter against, NBA players.
Yeah, I mean, his shot's not bad, so I don't know. Like,
He didn't make a 3 all year.
no, I know, but like projecting him long term, I think he'll expand his range out. I mean, that's not guaranteed or anything, but yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying that that's their plan or anything. I'm just saying then you start to think about maybe you clear up space for the forwards that way. But if we draft a forward at 7 or 8, and let's just say it's Keegan Murray or AJ Griffin or someone like that, then I think maybe you either bring them along slowly or, like you said, you just have an open competition and don't guarantee anyone. But I assume if we're willing to get Grant to want to come here, we're going to promise him a starting spot. So that's kind of just depends on whether he's the starting 3 or the starting 4 in either scenario, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want them to give up their own pick, no matter what, even if it falls a couple spots. I don't want them to give up 36, okay? Like, as part... Because obviously they're giving up the Milwaukee first.
I was talking about this today. Like, we went from a few weeks ago talking about 2 lottery picks, an early second, a late second. There's so many draft ranges we can talk about, but now if we give up that and don't get our second lottery pick, it just becomes our pick and the second to last pick in the draft. It becomes a lot less interesting, like scouting players and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like that's... It's Keon Johnson makes sense for the Pistons, and we're kind of loaded on guards. He doesn't make much sense for us. I think that he has to be a part of the deal.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's going to get developmental minutes here over the next couple of seasons. He's going to get them in Detroit. They got a big point guard with Cade Cunningham. I think they're going to try and play a lot in transition over the next couple years. I think Keon Johnson makes a ton of sense there and will get the minutes to develop. And, as a shooting guard next to Cade Cunningham in the backcourt, Cade Cunningham can guard 2s and 3s, and Keon Johnson can guard point guards and maybe slide up to some 2s. Like, I think Cade Cunningham's a good fit next to him if they project him as being a core piece long term, which he has some upside, obviously. So I think Keon Johnson would need to be part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
If the max, I don't really want Jeremy Grant. Like, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's going to happen, the max I hope they give up is that Milwaukee first and Keon Johnson. Anything more than that is absolutely an overpay, especially if it's true that Grant is leveraging himself to Portland.
Maybe because we have their 2025 second, so maybe we can give that back to them too. That might be a good throw-in, be like, here's your 2025 back.
See, if they want a second, don't trade 36, trade them that. Because there's a good chance they could be a playoff team by then. That's 3 years from now, right? We're talking about the 2022 draft. That's 3 years from now. Like, Bronny is going to be in the league by then if he's going to make the league. If he comes out after a year. You know what I mean? Like, that's how far into the future that is. They're going to be solid by then. So that's going to be a worse pick. I don't want to give up 36 in that deal. The Milwaukee first, Keon would make some sense for them, and I don't see how we play him long term. And then, basically instead of losing the Pelicans pick for the Milwaukee first, you're probably just losing Keon Johnson because the Pelicans didn't win that game. And in that case, it kind of sucks, but whatever.
I think, I don't know. I don't trust Cronin to negotiate that, though. You know what I mean? Like, even if we have leverage, I still don't trust him to not give up too much, and that's the problem, Yeah,
and then when he gives up too much, you know what people will say? Oh, this was his plan all along. No. See, look at this deal. This is such a great trade. This was his plan all along, even though he had leverage. And it would be all the same people that said, what do you expect him to do? He has no leverage. And then when he has leverage and still overpays, they're just going to say it's a part of his genius plan. And that it didn't matter that we lost the Pelicans pick. Like, that's what's going to happen this summer. Just wait, chat. Assuming this is true, that's what's going to happen this summer. That's the narrative that a lot of people are going to have this summer. That's the narrative that Jack Ramsey's going to have. That's the narrative that, some radio guys are going to have. And all the people that were saying, what do you expect him to do with no leverage when he's trading bad contracts, are going to excuse the fact that he's probably going to overpay for a guy who's going to be on a bad contract after next season when he's a free agent, when Cronin apparently has all the leverage right now.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a direct contradiction. People will contradict themselves if/when this goes down.
But he's an Olympian, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But I mean, just be ready for it. It's just it's so funny because I see it coming, dude. I see it like on the horizon, like a story before anybody. Like that's the narratives that are gonna happen, and it's gonna drive me crazy. But I'll be prepared for it because I know that's what's gonna happen if this goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but that's my way of coping with it. At least we know now, like, so when it happens, we already have resigned ourselves to the fact that it'll happen. Let's read off this Dono Antonio $2 donation. Thank you, Isaac for the TPE. Jonathan Isaac for the TPE might fix a lot of issues with Grant. We'd be using the TPE for Grant, so that won't work. We won't have it anymore. And there it goes. Any cap space we have, so we'd only have the other two trade exceptions, which would be 6.5 million and 3.3 million or something like that. So we only have two other trade exceptions, and neither of them are even close for Jonathan Isaac or another player. Grant just barely fits into the one as it is.
I wonder if there would be a way to get Kelly Olynyk out of the deal. You'd obviously have to match his salary, so you'd have to trade out Bledsoe.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think there's a way, maybe, but that ruins part of the intrigue for them of having to, or getting to completely eliminate the contract from their books and not having to take on any salary, because we'd have to guarantee the contract of Bledsoe if we did that, and there's not really an easy way around that.
Okay, well, hold on. Let me.
I mean, then we're
just
talking
have
about
some fun with
getting,
the trade machine here.
Keon Winslow, someone else. Yeah, so.
I mean, any 3-team idea I come up with, I don't think is going to happen because I don't think Cronin is going to be creative to try and get more value out of this.
Yeah, I also heard we're not trading Winslow, so that's not included.
Why is he an untouchable? Are you freaking kidding?
He's not necessarily untouchable. It just would have to be like a star, but
they value.
No, I mean like you know what I mean. Like same with Nas. Like you have to give up like a good player.
Same with Nas. Oh my God, we're screwed, bro. Justice Winslow is the same as Nas to this front office.
No, I didn't say they're exactly the same. I worded that weird. I'm just saying, I think they like Winslow. I don't think they're just gonna throw him in a trade to get Olynyk or something. They wouldn't.
Olynyk's better.
They wouldn't value Olynyk more than Winslow in this situation. I don't know.
That's stupid. Like I don't, bro. Justice Winslow came here. And we went on a 4-game winning streak, and now it's like, yeah, we value the hell out of him when he shot 40% from the field and 27% from 3.
I mean, that was.
But the 4-game winning streak? Are you kidding me? Oh God.
No, Aeromancer.
They're gonna start him next. Either way. Watch, they're gonna start Justice Winslow next year, and he's gonna be our on-ball stopper, and Jeremy Grant's gonna be our Rocco. That's the plan. So.
Oh
God.
And then let me just so there were several questions. I forgot who asked the first one, but someone said, does Chauncey want Grant? Let's just put it this way. Dame wants Grant. And that makes Billups and Cronin okay with the plan. Then someone asked, why does Dame want Grant if he sucks or whatever, like we say he does. I mean, he's got a reputation of being everything that Dame thinks we want. So, like, his reputation doesn't meet what actually happens on the floor, but people are fooled by that. And we talked about many times on the show, we know that there's plenty of bad players, including several Blazers who put up similar numbers to Jeremy Grant when we started tanking and stuff like that. So it's not that hard to find players that can put up big numbers on certain teams. It doesn't mean they're necessarily good, but I think that run that Denver had in the 2020 bubble with Jeremy Grant like getting up in LeBron's face and stuff and things like that, I think a lot of players around the league look at him differently from that series and think he's some sort of person he's not. So like he's definitely a case of reputation, not necessarily meeting them. But for the record, once again, if we trade for Grant, I will not root against him. I want that. I want to be wrong about him. I hope he becomes a good rebounder and a good on-ball defender, and Chauncey fixes all his problems or whatever.
I mean, if he comes here, just be bought in to trying to play the right way and play defense, because that's the problem we had at the start of last year. If he's bought in, that's already an improvement, over Norm or a guy like that. So, like, I still don't like it, but still, I mean, if he's bought in, that's a start, and that was one of my biggest worries, was like he's doesn't want to play for a winning team. He's not going to want to sacrifice his role. That's why he left Denver for Detroit. That's what we were hearing, a year ago. And then, so you bring him in and he's going to want to get paid. Like, if those issues, if he puts those to the side and wants to win, then I'm more okay with it than, than I was, before this conversation or before hearing this. But that's the thing, is that's what it depends on. I'm still not happy with it because he doesn't provide that point of attack defender we need, and his rebounding is not good. And offensively, I think he's just a role player, a little better version of Rocco offensively. Like, Rocco can't go and average 20 like he did, but that's not Jeremy Grant's best role. His best role is probably averaging 13 points per game next year. You know what I mean? That's not something super impressive. So that's why I still have my reservations. But if he's willing to be bought in and, not be the guy and wants to win, then okay.
And AJ has a good point. Josh Hart and Nurk also seem to like Grant. So I think there's a lot of people that are on board with that. Aeromancer says our TP is 20.864. Grant's salary next season is 29.52. Doesn't work. Actually, the traded player exceptions, you can add 100,000 to it. So as long as it does. So like I said, it just barely fits, but it fits. But this is likely, this is another question I saw a lot earlier in chat. When can we start making trades? So any team that's eliminated from the playoffs is now able to make trades. The thing is, though, it's very rare that it happens like prior to the lottery happening or when all teams are eliminated. I mean, it does happen. Like last year, there was the Horford for Kemba trade really early. But that was a non-lottery pick from the Celtics. So they already knew what pick it was. But a lot of teams like the Blazers, who are out of the playoffs right now, don't want to trade, or like they can't talk about their lottery pick in trades or whatever because they don't even know what pick it is yet. So I would expect, if this was correct and my source is good, that this would take place sometime a few days after the draft lottery on May 17th, and that's when it would become official. I don't know why they would wait very long after that. I think that's kind of the timing of it. I don't foresee many teams making trades unless it's like a player for player or some sort of pick situation that didn't apply to the lottery. Then maybe, but I don't see many teams making moves prior to that May 17th date. And also, I guess there could be, the other thing we haven't thought of is if we have a way to trade Chicago that Milwaukee pick to get our pick back and open up all our future first round picks.
What, just so we could pay more for the hell of it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm scared. I'm scared of those kind of possibilities, right? So maybe before that we see us trading for our pick back, but yeah. Yep.
All right. So I got a trade idea. All right. Incorporate something we talked about.
Have you been on Trade Machine this whole time?
Not this whole time. I've been waiting for like 5 minutes to share this. All right. So this actually works. It's not using the TP on Grant. It's using it on Bertans, but I wonder if you could trade Bledsoe to Dallas and take on Bertans' awful contract and that would allow you to bring in Olynyk without trading anything else out. Bledsoe, Luzada, and Keon Johnson matches Olynyk and Bertans, and then you use the TPE on Jeremy Grant, and it works. And then Dallas also has the 26th pick. I don't know how desperate they are to get off Bertans' contract, but he's it's one of the worst contracts in the league right now. So I assume that they'd want to trade it for Bledsoe's expiring contract this year to help them save money the following year instead of paying Bertans like $17-18 million. They could also, waive and stretch Bledsoe if they really wanted to save this year as well, and his contract would be better for that than Bertans's. So it's a situation where maybe Dallas gives up Bertans and 26 for Bledsoe just to get off Bertans' contract, and you could send 26 to Detroit with Keon Johnson, and maybe that's enough. And then you save the Milwaukee first, or you send the Milwaukee first and Detroit's future second, and you get the 26th pick back if you're Portland. And then you're also able to take on Olynyk, who's your backup center next year, and a good fit next to Watford, to be honest. I wonder if maybe you could get creative and extract value out of a trade like that.
Yeah. As someone in chat pointed out, are you trying to have not only Jeremy Grant, but maybe a worse rebounding power forward than him on our team?
You wouldn't play Bertans. You would not play Bertans. But yeah, I mean, Bertans is just an ugly contract that you take on to get more value.
This puts us right back into salary cap hell for Kelly Olynyk. I don't know. That's something they'll even consider.
I mean, I don't know if we're a tax team if we do this next year. Depends on Anthony's number, right? But I think
we're adding not only Jeremy Grant, but 25 million extra.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the math off the... We have a lot of room, obviously, below the tax line, so... I mean, maybe they'd be willing to do this, but... You're getting Kelly Olynyk, but then you're also getting you need the 26th pick from Dallas. You're not just taking on Bertans for Bledsoe. You need that 26th pick. So that's another asset. You could get a late first round pick if there's somebody the team really likes. You fill your backup center need, and you get a late first round pick out of this deal, potentially. So just like creative little ways like that, maybe that's an option. I don't know. Anyway.
Definitive One with the $5 donation. Thank you, man. He says, are we even looking for a GM, or are we stuck with Crow? Is the president of basketball operations coming who could supersede Crow's authority in potential moves? As far as I know, they have not even considered or thought of running a search for a permanent GM. That doesn't mean Cronin's necessarily going to be hired long term, but I think he's been given the authority to, for sure, go into the summer as the GM and see his plan from the trade deadline out. And I don't think that's going to change. From what I've heard, they haven't even reached out, or they haven't talked to any search firms. They haven't talked to any potential GMs that would be interested in the job, or presidents of basketball operations, or anything like that. So it looks like it is Cronin's job, and there's not really anything we're going to do about that.
Yep. I would want Olynyk out of that deal somehow. I don't know. If they're willing to take on Bledsoe for Olynyk, and you have to give up an extra second round pick, which I think it'd take more, but I don't know. Olynyk would be really good as a backup center because he can shoot. So you can play Trendon at the 4 and him at the 5. Trendon can play inside. Olynyk can shoot, pass, dribble a little bit for a center. And I think he's a solid positional defender. Not the best rim protector, but positionally he's pretty sound. So I like the idea of him, especially with like Josh Hart off the bench, and if Nas comes off the bench, questionable 3-point shooters, it provides some 3-point shooting there, fills the backup center need. Maybe then you don't use the MLE on a backup center. I like Olynyk on this team. It makes sense to me.
So Gray Hughes says, wasn't Jeremy born here when his dad played? Yes, he was technically. His dad got traded 2 months later, and he moved, and from what I heard, his dad didn't have the greatest experience here in Portland, and Jeremy hasn't really considered it here, but One thing that was important to him, I mean, Detroit had a black head coach and a black GM. That was a huge reason, and a historic black community and stuff like that. So that was the main reason why he wanted to play for a team like Detroit. Now, the reason why he's somewhat okay with that here is because of Chauncey, and he respects Chauncey a lot. And so, yeah, that would be. I mean, Chauncey's basically holding up that card for us, I guess, which is cool to actually have someone who can like have that kind of influence, I guess, for once. But Trevin says we're being punished for with Jeremy Grant because we fired Stotts. It's hilarious.
Or just don't trade the 8th. If we end up at like 8th or not, just don't trade a top 10 pick for him, man.
Yeah.
That'd be so gross. That would be disgusting. I mean,
but yeah, I mean, Dame's been in his ear since the Olympics. He didn't want to leave Detroit, but for everything I've heard it's already, like I said, they're already working out together. You
had that picture of Dame and Hart talking to him.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe this is another trade we call. We talked about Josh Hart all year, and then basically CJ to the Pelicans felt inevitable, which wasn't knowing anything. That was pretty obvious. But I called the Norm trade the morning of the trade deadline. It happened, and then just I don't know. It could be a third trade that we just know is coming. But I mean, this one's also obvious. I just hope that we don't get extracted for too much value. I mean, this trade, Eric, for me, is going to, assuming all this is true, this trade for me is going to completely determine Cronin's strength as a negotiator for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, because we already know it's crap, so. I
mean, maybe he learned. I don't know. Like, if he can't get... I don't really want Jeremy Grant, but if he can get him for solid value, I can say, okay, props to Cronin for at least not overpaying. If he gives up the 8th pick for him, or if it's like the Milwaukee first, Keon Johnson, and the 3 second-round picks, then you can't use the excuse of, oh, he didn't have any leverage, because in this situation, he supposedly has all the freaking leverage in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, dude, I mean, if Jeremy Grant wants to get traded, and he's on good terms with Detroit's front office, and he's not going to resign there next year if he wants to get traded and they don't trade him, and they want to save cap space. Yeah, and he won't resign with other teams because he wants to go to Portland, so he's using that as leverage. And then Detroit wants to save cap space, so they don't want any salary back, and we have a freaking traded player exception that's perfect for Jeremy Grant. With all those things in Cronin's favor, if he still overpays, you cannot give him a single excuse for, oh, well, he had no leverage. He has all the leverage in the world in this situation. Honestly, even the Milwaukee 2025 first in Keon Johnson, I feel like is a little bit overpaying. But given that he set the bar so low at this year's trade deadline, it better not be anything more than that. Or he overpaid and just is a terrible negotiator. And it's not anything to do with leverage.
I mean, I don't think that's an overpay considering how... I mean, I think Detroit got some better offers than that at the deadline, and they turned him down. But I don't think that's necessarily an overpay. But you're right. Under the circumstances, anything much more than that, like I said, I'd be willing to give their 2025 second back, I guess, if I had to. But I'm not giving him much more, and I certainly don't want to give him 36.
He's not getting any props for the deal if he gives up a second-round pick on top of Keon Johnson in the Milwaukee 2025 first. There's a situation where a guy wants to come to Portland, believe it or not. Okay, so he doesn't get props if he gives up that much. And it's a guy who only wants to come to Portland, supposedly, because Dame has been recruiting him for a year, right? Dame gets more props for that than Cronin, if that deal happens, and he had numerous pathways to a TP bigger than that. I mean, if he made the Clippers and the Pelicans trade happened at the same time, I'm pretty sure we would have gotten a $30 million trade player exception. So we would have had $10 million in terms of a TPE left after this trade. So, I mean, I won't criticize him, I guess, if he gives up the Detroit second round pick on top of that, but it's still not great value considering you have all the leverage, right? And it's like these people that give him every excuse in the book because he has no leverage. Okay, now that he has all the leverage in the world, are they going to criticize him if he gives up too much? Or is it just going to be, oh, well, that's his master plan, and people secretly like him because he's a nice guy and therefore want to react positively to anything he does? Because that's what it's probably going to be. So, I don't know. I expect a little double standard when it comes to leverage, with Cronin having no leverage, so he had to make awful trades and trade CJ McCollum for almost nothing and Norman Powell for almost nothing. And then when they trade, Keon Johnson, a first-round value and a future first-round pick, and that's 2 firsts more than we could get for all 4 of Nance, CJ, Norm, and Rocco, there won't be criticism from those same people.
Mm-hmm. But those contracts suck, and Jeremy Grant's awesome.
Yeah. That'll be the narrative.
And we'll sign him to a worse contract than any of those players.
Yep. So you're going to have people contradicting themselves. There's no way that people that are excusing Cronin for his moves at the deadline could be in positive support of Jeremy Grant and not contradict themselves, unless they just wildly overrate Jeremy Grant, right? So they're either going to contradict themselves, or they're going to think Jeremy Grant's a lot better than he is, and probably in 2 years they're going to be singing the same tune that they did about Rocco, who they all wanted when we traded for Rocco, and then 2 years later it was a terrible trade and we gave up way too much. Especially if Keon Johnson pans out in Detroit.
Yeah, we're gonna have to trade Grant. We're gonna have to attach a first to get rid of his contract down the line, and then they'll say, "Oh, it's because of Olshey we had to do it."
Yep. I mean, that's the thing is, our opinion, my opinions are just based on logic. Okay, I don't let a GM being an asshole or a GM being a nice guy factor into my opinions, because if you let your personal bias due to oh, he's a nice guy, I'm gonna like his moves more, usually the logic at some point will contradict itself if there's bias in it. And that's what I've discovered. I'm not going to criticize Olshey because he's a jerk. I'm not going to praise Cronin because he's a nice guy. Because at some point, Cronin will be on the other side of a move, right? He was giving up the players worth value at the deadline, and then in the future, he's going to be the guy getting a player of value. So, if you have opinions that set the price point super low for the players he gave up because he had no leverage, then when he has a bunch of leverage and is getting a player and gives up a lot for it, your logic contradicts itself.
I mean, we've already debunked the fact that they didn't have any leverage in those trades, because people were saying, oh, they had to get under the tax when that whatever trade you want to take, the other one didn't have to happen to get under the tax. And then this is, I mean, I'm having a really, really tough time with people on Twitter because this is just beyond stupid to me. People are trying way too hard. New Orleans wanted CJ, right? They wanted him, right? They wanted him to the point that they were willing to most likely give up a lottery pick for CJ, right? Yet now I have people trying to tell me because we didn't get that lottery pick, he wasn't worth a lottery pick. Huh? What? They literally tried to give us a lottery pick for him, but he wasn't worth a lottery pick, and he was a $30 million old guy who sucks, and we're lucky to have someone even take him for a Milwaukee 2025 pick. Huh? They were willing to give up a lottery pick for him. And I'm still waiting. Maybe chat can help me out here. I want one person, just one trade in the history of sports, whether it be football, basketball, baseball. Name a trade where the conditions of the trade get worse if that player ends up being really good and helps lead them to the playoffs or what their stated goal is. Because in football, you have these things called conditional picks. So a team will trade for someone, let's say, like the Titans trade for DK Metcalf, right?
Yep.
And so they give up like a second round pick, but if DK is on the team like next year or plays like 15 games, that becomes a first round pick, stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. There's trades that happen all the time in football like that the pick becomes better if he plays a certain amount of games, or if they make the playoffs, or if they win a Super Bowl or whatever. Yeah, Carson Wentz trade, I think he played a certain amount of games, so it turned into a first instead of a second or something like that.
Connor says, even in soccer, if you sell a player to a team, you often get extra money if that player meets certain goals there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like transfer thing. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in soccer. But like, I just want to find out one trade where a team was willing to give up a lottery pick if it did not work out for them. Like if CJ sucked and they were terrible, that's worth a lottery pick to us. But because CJ was good and got us into the playoffs and helped lead us to a play-in victory, now all of a sudden he's not as valuable as he would have been if he sucked for us, right? If he was terrible and not worth his contract, then we would have given you more for him. Anyone who says that on Twitter is dumb. That is stupid logic. I am so sick of it, because we'll have a back and forth with people for like multiple messages back and forth, and then all of a sudden they'll just be like, still wasn't worth his contract, he's old and it's $30 million. Yep. It's like that is not an argument. New Orleans was literally willing to give up a lottery pick for him. That means his value was a lottery pick to at least one team. The fact that we did not end up getting a lottery pick out of it means that we failed that process, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter what happened after that, right? We failed.
Okay? Especially when that team still has a lottery pick.
Right. So they still have a lottery. That's the most frustrating part. They didn't get their lottery pick, but they still have another team's lottery pick in the same vicinity that we should have had that pick from them. Yep. But they weren't willing to give that up in this scenario where they did so good. They accomplished their goal and made the playoffs. So that makes no sense to anyone who's ever been involved with sports or knows anything about being a GM or a front office or knows the CBA or anything like that. It makes zero sense, man. Like, you do not give up less. If New Orleans called us and was like, this was not a secret. New Orleans wanted to be a play-in team. They thought they could, if they got the right guard to help them out, that they could be a play-in team. Now, they probably thought Zion would be back at some point to help them as well. But they thought they could make a run at the play-in, and it turned out they were right? They did make a run at it. I mean, they got kind of lucky at times, but they accomplished their goal, and because of that, we, like, CJ, all of a sudden now people are complaining that his value, like, what was Cronin supposed to do? He wasn't worth what they offered us or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just so dumb.
Here's the thing. New Orleans has a lot of future firsts.
I know,
right? They had better future firsts, so it's like it's like if he backed it up with the Pelicans' future first and then like a second or something, okay, at least that's comparable enough where it's like, okay, the deal doesn't get that much worse for us with them achieving their goals and the deal working out for them. But no, it's like the Milwaukee 2025 first, unless he has some notion that Giannis is going to leave in the next 3 years, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it, man. Like, the deal was so weird and so dumb. Like,
and it's possible that the Lakers pick moved up, right? Or still moves up. And so in that case, we probably would have gotten stuck with the Milwaukee one, or maybe, like you said, you could have added a couple seconds or something, right? But
here's what they should have done. It should have been, we get the Pelicans pick if it's 5-14. If it's 15-30, we get the Lakers pick. Okay, so if you guys make the playoffs, if CJ's that good for you that you make the playoffs, we get the Lakers pick. And that would be if it's between 5 and 10, because they don't have it if it's 11 or lower. And let them top 4 protect that. That's fine.
Yeah.
And then if we don't get the Lakers pick, then we get like a Pelicans 2023 pick or the Lakers 23. Like, I forget which pick they have next, but a pick like the next year that you could hypothetically flip for your own first round pick, because if it's a Pelicans 2023 first, this lottery protected, you might be able to flip that in one of the second round picks you got at the deadline for your own first bag and at least be able to trade all your first. But instead, it's a Milwaukee 2025 first that's such a good team that is so far down the line, you probably can't flip it for your own first round pick back. So that's what it should have been. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with the Milwaukee pick, I guess, if it was like we had other contingencies, but there should not be a scenario where the New Orleans Pelicans end up with a pick in the 5 to 14 range, and we do not end up with their pick in the 5 to 14 range, and they somehow get that pick and keep it. Like, there should not have been negotiated a scenario. And like I said this before, if I'm Cronin and they said like, oh, we're willing to give you our pick, but not the Lakers if things are reversed, I would say exactly what I just told you guys. Like, Cronin said this when he got first promoted to interim GM, right? He said, part of the thing I feel I'm good at is looking at other teams' needs. Like, do you need to get under the cap? Do you need to get this player to fit into your team or whatever? And then providing what they need so they feel like they got what they wanted to, and we're both happy, right? Mm-hmm. So in that deal, they want CJ. They desperately wanted CJ. He's better than frickin' their other options. They could have gotten Eric Gordon
so
for a first
they
or
gave
whatever.
up the 15th pick for Devontae Graham. Yeah. That's how desperate they were for a lead guard.
They could have gotten Eric Gordon for cheap at the deadline, or cheaper than the CJ maybe. Well, not now, but like, it could have been cheaper on paper at the deadline, right? But they didn't want frickin' Eric Gordon back. They wanted a guard that could potentially be their lead guard for a few years and take some of that pressure off him. On top of that, we know for a fact, right? This has come from CJ, from New Orleans, from Cronin himself. All of them have said that CJ chose the Pelicans, right?
Yep.
The frickin' Pelicans, right? Yep. So if I'm on the phone with Cronin, I'm like, CJ wants to play for your franchise. I'm not trading to him unless you freaking give me that Lakers pick if your pick doesn't convey, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and Griffin's going to be sitting there like, man, we have the CJ. Name a better player than CJ who was ever chosen to play in New Orleans, right? Ingram got traded there. Zion got drafted there. Like, no better player than CJ is ever going to say, I want to play in New Orleans over like LA or New York or, you know what I mean? Like, no one's going to choose that, right? No one's going to choose him over like New Orleans over let's say Miami or something, right? Mm-hmm. And CJ literally chose to go there, and we helped him get there, becomes the face of their franchise, and we get jack squat for that, basically. Like, that makes no sense. Like, how do you not leverage that in the trade negotiations to being like, hey, look, you have a good player here. Now, it's like, I don't even care if you think he's all-star level. He's a good player. Maybe not all-star level. Okay, people are bringing up Julius Randle in the chat. He was signed for the mid-level exception. He did not have many offers in free agency that year. It was not a case, and Randle didn't pop until New York. I mean, he was okay as a prospect, but it wasn't. The Lakers let him go for nothing. They let him sign. They could have re-signed him if they wanted to, but they didn't even offer him a contract. So, anyways, so you have a case where Cronin could have been on the phone and said, they could have been like, okay, we'll give you our pick, but we don't want to risk it if it becomes the Lakers pick or whatever. Yeah. But I would have said, why don't we have the same protections? If it falls between 5 and 10, we get it. If it moves up to 4, you get to keep it, right? And if they said no, I would have been like, dude, you got to give me something here. We're giving you CJ. He wants to be there. He's under contract for several more years. You haven't had a lead guard like that in a long time, since Chris Paul probably. Like, please, like, consider this, or I'm moving on. I'm gonna look elsewhere, and I'm gonna consider trading him to a place that he's not 100% going, because you're not willing to work with me here. Because if it works out for you, like I said, that deal gets very bad for us if you guys make a run with CJ and make the playoffs. And if you don't understand that, then I can't make this deal right now. And there is no chance that Pelicans would have been like, screw you, I'm never trading you, and then traded for Eric Gordon, right? right?
I mean, they were willing to give up. Their pick at the time was like 8th.
Yeah.
They were willing to take that risk and potentially give up the 8th pick for CJ with it not working out. So if it works out, why would the contingency of, okay, we get the 8th pick, which is the Lakers pick, why would that be a no-go for them?
Yeah. So I was told by people like, well, they were willing to risk it part way, but not all the way. It's like, no, that's dumb because, like I said, if it was the opposite, right? Like if we didn't get their pick if they didn't make the playoffs, but we got it if they did, like we got something better if they did make the playoffs, then I could see like maybe understand it more. But like that wasn't the case. It's dumb. I feel like Cronin just thought or assumed that the Lakers would get it together, and he didn't even consider a scenario where the Lakers pick could end up that way, even though we foresaw that right after the trade. I have a tweet from shortly after the trade saying that there's a logical possibility that is playing out. And so unfortunately, that's what happened, and we couldn't even get better pick compensation when they were willing to give up a lottery pick for CJ, and they wanted him.
But here's the problem with people, is the people that want to like Cronin aren't going to listen to that or think about that logically.
Mm-hmm.
They want to like Cronin. So they're not going to spend their mental energy trying to comprehend the logic behind that point. So you get people that'll just argue, and then, instead of listening to what you say, it's, oh, well, CJ wasn't where CJ, it just turns into CJ bashing, and then it turns into, well, O'Shea put him in this position, so what do you expect him to do? Like, it just turns into a bunch of BS. It's actually listening to the logic of what you have to say, because they want to like Cronin, because a lot of them couldn't stand O'Shea, okay? Or a lot of them just don't criticize GMs and just assume, oh, the GMs did their best, and why should we criticize them if we're not a GM? Like, it's basically, is anybody arguing with that viewpoint has some sort of bias, because there's no logic that counters what you have to say. There's no logic.
Show me proof that Cronin could have gotten the Lakers pick. Like, you have no evidence.
Your evidence is common sense.
Stupid, yeah.
your evidence is just common sense.
Yeah.
There's some things that are just common sense, man, and people just assume that GMs are apparently perfect and do everything based upon flawless logic, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't make sense why people will excuse that. The trade, we should be sitting here talking about potentially having the 8th or 9th pick going into the draft lottery, as well as ours, and we could be in a freaking fantastic position there, and we're not, because he screwed that up. So that's where it leaves us now.
Could move up. That Lakers pick could still move up, and we could have gotten screwed anyway, but at least we had a better chance of getting it, or a higher probability of getting either pick.
Just mitigate your risk.
Yep.
Mitigate your risk. And then, like, the worst case scenario shouldn't be the Milwaukee 2025 first. It should be a pick next year, because they have multiple firsts. So it doesn't make any sort of sense to me. They might have lucked out.
Look how CJ has embraced that city. Look how they've embraced CJ.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of stuff is, I mean, it might seem trivial to some people, but that's really important for a franchise like New Orleans that's kind of struggled to find their way. A lot of people think they should be moved to Seattle if there's not an expansion soon or whatever. So it was important for a franchise like that. Look how much hope they have there. That atmosphere was crazy for the playing game and the playoff, the first, or I guess it was the first playing game, because the other two were road games. But the atmosphere was crazy. I'd never seen like a Pelicans arena that going that wild over their team before. I mean, even when they first moved there and stuff, there wasn't even that much excitement about them,
Yep, and here's the thing, Eric, is we've had a star who's embraced us for almost a decade now, so we take that sort of, like, we don't really think about that.
Right.
Okay, because Dame's embraced us, so we don't think how that's important to another team.
We've got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, CJ did too. So it's I mean, I'm done arguing with people on Twitter, because it's people that won't actually think unbiasedly about what you have to say or the logic, okay? And that's just the way it's gonna go. Like, that's the thing is I'm willing to change my mind or admit I'm wrong or whatever if it's logic-based, right?
Yeah.
Like, I try and base everything I talk about off of logic and studying the CBA and paying attention to trades and trying my best to get a accurate gauge of player value, and after trades, trying to look for sources talking about what other GMs think about trades and that sort of thing, right? Like, it's not based upon the notion that, oh, CJ's overpaid because somebody told me so, because I listened to the radio and they say he sucks, or they say that we should have traded him 4 years ago, or we should have boycotted the team 4 years ago because we didn't trade him, which is what's actually been said on the radio recently. So that's basically the situation we're in with the team. That's why we're going to continue to try and provide all our logic behind all our opinions at the forefront, and that's what all our opinions are based off of, and we're going to try and explain it in a way that it makes sense to you. And here's the thing, you might not even agree with us, but you can take some of our logic and maybe make a logical decision on your own as to how you feel about it. That might not be the same as ours, but, if you think, I basically hope that, not necessarily that you guys agree with us, but just that you can think through things logically instead of a lot of fans out here that think through things emotionally or based on preconceived notions and don't actually take a step back and try and think a situation through in terms of logic. So that's the that's part of the thing with it. We call it like it is, and we try and think through things logically.
Thanks a lot, Roman, for mentioning that we gave up Nance too.
Yeah.
But Roman also said he panicked and didn't think things through, maybe with the CJ trade. But that's the other problem, right? If we would have called their bluff, there was still 3 days. 3 days till the trade deadline. So it wasn't like a last second offer, like take it or leave it or whatever on the table. Like, I guarantee, no one has any evidence of this, and now it can never be proven either way. But if you say, hey, look, we're going to look at like CJ, I know he really wanted to come there, but this just doesn't stack up to some of these other offers. You can even lie, or kind of exaggerate a little bit, and that's good GMing. I'm sorry if you don't know how to manipulate another GM. If you're the one getting manipulated, you're a bad GM. That's just the way it is. And he should have found a way to convince them that he wasn't going to do that trade as is unless he had a little bit less risk with getting the pick. And that might have just been as simple as, if the Lakers pick ends up in that range instead of their pick, that we get that instead.
It's less risk for him,
and
it's
nothing
not,
for them. Yeah.
It's not more risk for them because
Right.
it's dependent on their situation working out.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well, if our situation works out so well that we have to give this up, well, it cancels out. So it's mitigating our risk and not even providing more risk for them, and he couldn't get it done.
Yeah. And so I would have just said, like, look, we can't do this with that much risk. Like, CJ's too good of a player to risk it all on a lottery pick, possibly conveying or not. If you give us a little more protection, we'll consider it. But until you're willing to maybe make this little, and it was tricky because they owed the Laker pick 11-30 to Memphis, and there's all these things that made it a little difficult. Like, obviously the Hornets got the pick since it was 15. All that kind of stuff played into it, but Cronin's even talked about how he needs to be creative, right? So I would have just said, like, look, we need some sort of value here if it doesn't convey, and if you're not willing to accept that, I'm sorry, but I'm going to look at other deals for CJ. And I guarantee you they would have caved. They would have.
Yeah, because here's the thing: if they don't pull off that CJ trade, there's a really good chance that Griffin loses his job.
Right.
This trade
but now
probably
they have
saved his job.
pick.
Yeah, this situation working out for him saved his job. And you're telling me he wouldn't have done something that wouldn't have even been a worse situation for him when his job gets saved by this trade? It's just such a debacle on so many levels. There's so many layers to why it was a misguided deal that people just aren't willing to peel back. And
I believe it's a 0.04% chance that the pick will fall to 11. It's 0.04%, right? And so that means they're almost guaranteed. It's like 99 point 6 guaranteed to get a top 10 pick. They got CJ. They have Zion coming back. They have a plethora of multiple first-round picks from other teams in the future. And we couldn't manipulate that at all to get something a little better now that they're set up so well for the future. I don't hear anyone complaining about CJ's contract in New Orleans.
Yep.
We talked about this last time, but I don't hear the Clippers. They said the exact opposite about Norm's contract, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And it's all because we couldn't negotiate better terms of a deal. It's dumb. I mean, you don't deserve to be a GM if you don't have the foresight to work to get the best possible deal for your team, and you make another team that much good. And that's the other problem. We made 2 Western Conference teams that much better to try to compete. So even if we're good next year, we're going to have to compete with them with CJ, Zion, a top 10 pick, and whoever, they'll have the MLE, maybe even some cap space to work with. Mm-hmm. And then the Clippers will have Kawhi back, theoretically, Paul George. They might re-sign Rocco. They got Norm now for several years. So we made those teams much tougher to deal with, even if we do luck into a top 3 pick and get some good free agents or make the Grant trade or whatever.
Yeah, it's just, disgusting. But, I mean, here's the thing, too, is the Lakers pick have a 26.3% chance of moving into the top 4. So if we made that a condition, a backup for the Pelicans making the playoffs, we would have had a 73% chance of getting that pick. Mm-hmm. And it'd probably be 8, 9, or 10.
Yeah.
So, or it'd have to be 8, 9, or 10. 73% chance. Probably 8th or 9th pick. So you're talking about maybe Mathurin. You're talking about Durin with the 2nd pick. And we missed out on that, and somehow that's okay to people, even though it makes no sense why that wasn't a condition of the trade. So, I mean, we just gotta sit here and hope that we get a top 4 pick. We haven't done a lottery sim in a while. You want to do it? I've been sad doing lottery sims because, obviously we're not talking about a 2nd pick, but...
So I had one earlier today.
Yeah.
I only did 1 today, and we moved up to 2, right?
Yeah.
And Detroit was 5. And I was thinking, oh man, what if that's what we're waiting for? We're just waiting to possibly swap picks. If we get a top 3 pick and move out of the top 4 to get Grant and move back down to like 6 or 5, like that would be horrible. Now if we get 4 and they're 5 or 6 and
it's Ivy there at 4.
It's Ivy there at 4. I maybe consider that an okay scenario if we could keep all their other picks and everything.
Or if we end up at 2 and we know the team at 3 is taking Ivy and Detroit's at 4 and we trade down from 2 to 4 and get one of Banchero, Jabari, or Chet and then get Grant for that. Mm-hmm. And maybe at 4 we get the guy that we want all along. Maybe Jabari falls to 4 for some crazy reason. And then basically we get the 2nd pick and then trade it for 4, which is Jabari, and then we get... Jeremy Grant, then you're basically talking about getting Jeremy Grant for free in that sort of situation. Yep. So that's okay, too. If it's like 2 for 5 in Grant, that's disgusting.
Yep.
So, you ready to simulate it?
Sure.
Same odds as always. Let's scroll up. There's not going to be any anticipation at the start of this. Unfortunately, it sucks, but it is what it is. Blame Cronin. At 14, you got Cleveland. 13, you got Charlotte. 12, you got New York, so whoever's 12th moved up. I forget who's 12th. At 11, you got San Antonio. So San Antonio... Does that mean 11th moved up? No, 11th was New York, so 10th moved up. At 10, you got the Lakers picked to New Orleans. At 9, you got Portland moving down 3 spots. I shouldn't have freaking done this. 8, you got Indiana. 7, you got OKC. 6, you got Detroit. 5, you got Orlando. Houston, Sacramento, Washington, and the Clippers to OKC.
Really?
The OKC gets the 1st and 7th picks.
That would have been New Orleans' pick, wouldn't it?
No, that pick is 12th. New Orleans would have been 11th.
11th, right.
So we would have gotten the New Orleans pick at 12. We would have had 9 and 12.
OKC's pick moves down 3 spots to 7. Hilarious, but then they get 1st.
Yeah, so they could end up with the 1st and 2nd picks, to be honest. And so could, actually, they're the only team. Because the Pelicans can't anymore since they made the playoffs. All right, 2 and 3. I mean... Or Detroit at 3. And then the Lakers pick to New Orleans is at 4. This is interesting.
If they want to if they want to trade that scenario.
I mean, I wonder if they value that at all, because maybe you don't have to go up to Milwaukee. Maybe if it's Keon and 2 for 3 and Grant,
Yeah.
because they really want somebody at 2 that they think we would take. I mean, that would take Cronin being a good negotiator and like leveraging the fact that he had the second pick and like trying to figure out who to. That would take some shrewd GMing skills to get value out of trading down one spot. I don't trust Cronin to do that, but we've seen trades like that in the NBA and in the NFL.
Yeah.
Solomon Thomas with Trubisky with the Niners and Bears back in the day, second and third picks happened like that.
Well, the Blazers have the famous LaMarcus Aldridge, Tyrus Thomas. It was 2 and 4 swap. Yeah.
I just like trying to think of scenarios here.
We also traded 6 and 7 that same draft just for cash.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very much anymore. But.
Oh, God, look at this. Both LA teams are top 3 and neither of them get their pick. That's kind of hilarious to me.
But we moved down 3 spots. Dude, if we move down 3 spots, I'm gonna I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna break something live on stream.
That would be so sad. That would be so sad. Cleveland up to 2. I'm just trying to get us top 3 to talk about trade down scenarios. And dude, Tankathon, stop hating on us. Okay, 4. See, like 4 for 6 in Grant.
Mm-hmm.
There's that scenario.
Oh yeah, I'm breaking the clock. That's a good idea, AJ.
Oh yeah, you're breaking the clock. Yep. I'm looking forward to it. You gonna get a hammer or something?
I don't know.
3 for 7.
I might just break it over my head and hope it kills me.
Oh man, dude, we can't get the number 1 overall pick. I just want to talk about trade down scenarios. Okay, there we go. 1 for 4 if New Orleans is going Ivy at 3.
Maybe.
See, like, okay, this was the scenario I was looking for. Like, if New Orleans, because they could use another guard, obviously. They got Ingram and Zion at the 3 and 4. So maybe they want Ivy at 3 next to CJ, which would be intriguing. I could see Portland going down from 1 to 4 and taking one of Banchero, Chet, or Jabari, whichever one is left if New Orleans goes Ivy at 3. And then you also get Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: if Portland's 1, let me try and get a scenario where Portland's 1, and then a team with multiple firsts is at 3, just to illustrate it. But we're probably not going to get the first pick for another hour, and Washington doesn't have 2 firsts, so that's unlucky. I'm just literally going to spam this until we get something that works out.
Yeah, I just don't know in this particular draft with how close the top 3 are if any team would give up value to move up like the Tatum Fultz scenario.
I think it's possible. I think it's very possible. Oh shoot, I had the scenario and I accidentally simmed it again. But it was Portland at 1 and San Antonio at 3. So then San Antonio also has 20. And then 25. So maybe you trade 1 for 3 and 20, and maybe 20 is enough for Grant. Or maybe 1 for 3 and 25, and 25 is enough. I would want 20 and 25 if possible, but that probably feels like a little too much. Like 1, 20, and 25. No, 1 and 36 for 3, 20, and 25 maybe. And then maybe you trade one of those picks for Grant, 20 or 25. And maybe that's good enough, you know. I wouldn't want to trade 20 and Keon at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. If we end up at 1 and we have the trade done for Grant where it's like Keon and the Milwaukee first, and we end up at 1 and San Antonio would be willing to trade 20 and 3 for 1, I would definitely consider that. If they're willing to trade 3, 20, and 25 for 1, then I think you have to do that. Because I don't think there's enough differential between the top 3 power forwards where you wouldn't want to get the 20th and 25th picks, but if San Antonio fell in love with somebody, you know. But, so question, you know, so it sounds like Jeremy Grant's going to be a Blazer, Eric. Does that change who you'd want out of the top 3 in the draft?
No, I don't think it changes that for me, because I think they could all play the 4, or should all play a 4 in this first year, and I think Jeremy Grant's best position is 4, so unfortunately I don't think it really matters that much.
It'd make me want Banchero a little bit less, because I would want a shooter, and Banchero is the most questionable defensively.
Although Grant theoretically should be a decent enough 3-point shooter.
Yeah, decent enough.
I mean, he shot high 30s.
Just defensively, Grant on ball
Right.
isn't
Yeah.
all that, and
Yeah.
the
True.
Mankaro isn't all that. Like, I'd either want to go all in on rim protection or get a good perimeter defender.
Hmm.
So either Chet or Jabari, Chet, you just go all in on rim protection, and then Grant can just play pressure defense on the perimeter, and then if he gets beat, you have two guys behind them that can protect the rim. That's kind of what the case was with Markkanen at the 3 and then Mobley and Allen at the 4 and 5 in Cleveland. So I think Chet's fine there. Or you go with Jabari because I think he has potential to guard on the ball multiple positions.
So, uh, hold on. I don't want to change the. It's a slight change of topic.
No, go ahead. I'm done talking.
So I was just thinking about Cleveland, right? This is the kind of thing I was talking about earlier, right? So Cleveland made a trade that was lottery protected for Karis LeVert, right?
Yep.
So what happens to that deal? It just moves to next year, lottery protected again, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they get unlucky and don't get it, I think it turns into seconds or whatever, which is fine. But at least they have the same terms next year, right? Same with our pick to Chicago, right? It's not converting this year. What happens? It's the same next year. It doesn't turn into a worse pick next year. Most of the time, right? It's like, oh, lottery protected, and then it goes to like top 10 protected or top 8 protected or whatever. Like, it doesn't get worse. I don't understand. But they also got what turned out to be the 31st pick. So they basically got a late first, early second, the 31st pick in that deal as well. So even though it didn't convert for them and Cleveland has a shot, they still have that same protection next year. And they got the 31st pick and I think a 2027 Utah pick or something. So, Yep. Fun times.
Yep. Is Fanspo not updated that we don't have the Pelicans 2022 first anymore?
I don't think so.
Because I got somebody, I don't know, I don't want to put anyone on blast, but somebody DM'd me a trade idea with us trading the Pelicans pick. It's like, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So if they're watching the stream, I'm not going to reply right now. But we don't have that pick anymore.
Max, I mean, unless LeBron specifically asked to come here, I don't see it happening. And it's hard for us to match salary. That's the other thing. So I looked it up. Eric Bledsoe's guarantee date is June 29th, which is a couple days before free agency. So unfortunately, if we don't trade him around the draft, we might either be stuck in a situation where we have to guarantee his contract to possibly still use him in a trade or decide that we're just going to cut bait then. So, yeah, if you're talking about sign-in trades, I don't think we can really match salary for anyone. Bringing in a sign-in trade, that also hard caps us, so it might be kind of tricky depending on how much that player made, especially if we traded for Grant already. But yeah, it's tough.
Yep. I mean, here's the thing: if this Grant information is true, and somehow we don't pull off a deal for him, I feel like it's a sign and trade the following summer.
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable at this point. This dude's going to be wearing a Blazers jersey. Guess I got to start watching Jeremy Grant film.
I was thinking you were gonna, because you don't want it to happen, you would push back against it more.
I mean, I've already said all I need to say about why I don't want him.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the reasons, I mean, if he wants to come here, then that's, I mean, he left Denver for a team that sucks on the same contract and wanted to go play in Detroit and be the man. So if he's willing to put that aside, then it makes me a little more open to it. I still don't like it, but I'm not as negative, because that was a factor in why I was so negative against this trade. If it's a situation where we can, if we just got him for the Milwaukee 2025 first, I still wouldn't be happy with it, but part of me would be like, oh, well, being so upset about losing the Pelicans pick doesn't matter because we were probably going to give up the Pelicans pick for him. and now we just give up the Milwaukee first, you know? Like, I don't know. It would make me feel a little bit better because it would make me feel like all the pain we went through losing the Pelicans pick just didn't make a difference in the end.
Because we're going to trade it anyway.
Yeah,
But
like, even though that's not necessarily a good thing, it's just like,
well,
okay.
see, I think the only thing that's changed is Grant wants to be here now, where I don't think that was the case even at the trade deadline. Because otherwise, if they were willing to accept the, like, even Keon in the Milwaukee 2025 first, we would have just traded the conditions of those picks, or that pick and Keon at the deadline, right?
Or it was like, we're going to wait on that because we're going to try and tank the rest of the year.
But Grant was hurt at the time, and with how we sat players out with injuries like that, that could have easily been stretched out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. Why did he change his mind? Do you know?
Well, Shervin kind of touches upon this. He had a good comment. Is that really, if he is thinking about how he didn't like, I don't think he likes losing. I mean, he was fine with it for 2 years. I think he proved his point, and now he wants to show that, or be on a winning team again. But I think if you look at it, Portland desperately needs a player that he thinks he is, right?
Yeah.
So he's probably looking at it like, they have no forwards. I'm gonna be like the second option on this team now that, like, he probably thinks he's better than Ant, right? And so yeah, that's I think for him, Portland's a really good situation. And then also, like I said, I think the respect that Chauncey has with other players around the league helps a lot too.
Yeah. Oh, God, why is he a bad on-ball defender? Because I haven't paid enough attention to him. I just know he grades out as being a bad on-ball defender. Is it just a lack of foot speed like Rocco? Is it?
I think it's that he takes chances on steals, like Rocco.
Oh God.
Yeah. Like, I'm hoping that gets cleaned up. Obviously, when you're not playing on a bad team, maybe that was some of it. I think he can be like a little too aggressive sometimes, so he overplays it. But I mean, honestly, it's hard to be a good on-ball defender. But when you're talking about grading out, it's like compared to your peers, it's not just like everyone could be bad, right? Yeah. Shervin, Grant is graded out as one of the worst on-ball defenders in the league as a forward. So I don't know what you mean. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I actually have the metrics. I can put them on screen.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, he should be better than he is.
Let me put that up. Where is it at? All right. Cool. Let me throw this up here and make it smaller. There's some sort of qualification, like a certain amount of minutes or whatnot, but this is... What stat was this, Reese? Reese is the one who sent me this. What stat is determining the on-ball defense? I'm curious. Is it LeBron? I don't know. But this is his on-ball defense grades. I mean, how did he go from B+, B- in OKC to F in Denver? That's what I'm curious about. But he was a D level before that even. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, I think both years he was there. He had Paul George, who helped a lot. They also had was that before or after God, well, I'm drawing a blank on the name. Who's that really good defender they had that was like the worst offensive player of all time?
Andre Roberson.
Yeah, Roberson. I don't remember when he got hurt, but I think it was sometime around there.
Yeah. I don't know if Reese is still in here, but yeah. Like, obviously, defensive stats can be a little bit messy, but
Right.
when you're looking at like a long-term sample size, it's worrisome. Obviously, got to watch tape and whatnot, but it's not promising. Reese, I'm curious what Rocco's grades were for on-ball defense in regards to this. But Yeah, obviously you can't paint the whole picture with advanced metrics, but you can get an inkling for it, and obviously this isn't pretty. Um, so I could see us bringing in Jeremy Grant and tasking him with being the on-ball stopper, and then people are like, dang, our defense still sucks. Or our defense is fine because like Dame and Ant become average defenders, and it's like we're
Or
an average defense.
like then, no, there's two narratives that'll happen. One, our coach sucks because he can't even get Jeremy Grant. A team with Jeremy Grant, a great defender like him, like he can't even get this team to be good at defense. And two, I mean, this is the most likely thing. They'll turn on the Ant Dame backcourt and say that, see, told you the small backcourt couldn't work. And that's the problem. And that's why I hate the idea of this, because people are fooled. They think he's a better on-ball defender than he is. And they think that will help our defense. And it's not the exact fit we need with a Dame Ant backcourt. We know that going in, but people don't think that's the case. So they're just going to look at it like they did with the starting Norm at the 3, right? And it has nothing to do with any of the effort or the schemes or anything like that. It's just they're too small, right? And that's just going to be the thing. They're just going to say Dame and Ant are too small. It didn't work with CJ. Why did they expect it to work with Dame and Ant? They have a good defender like Jeremy Grant, and they still can't make it work. And it's going to be sad.
Yep. I mean, I feel like we're preparing everybody for all the narratives.
Yep.
I mean, D Raptor doesn't even like Jeremy Grant. He was a negative 0.8 last year. Go ahead.
Speaking of narratives, did you catch Bobby Marks' Blazers breakdown today?
Oh God. What?
No, it's actually
positive.
Hey, this is gonna shock you, Tori.
Oh God, 60 million in cap space?
No. According to Bobby Marks, now we have no cap space. And we're gonna act like a team that's over the cap, so we don't lose the TPEs. And the TPE is more than any kind of cap space we can create by renouncing free agents and stuff like that. So we're better off using the mid-level exception and keeping the trade exceptions and trying to use those as our assets to acquire players versus trying to create any sort of cap space, because it's not going to happen. And who is the one place that has been telling you guys that since even before these moves were made? Like, we've been on that from the beginning, and Bobby Marks was one of the guys with Woj telling us that we're going to have 60 million in cap space, and we're going to cut Hart, and we're going to let Nurk walk and all this stuff, and we're going to have all this stuff. And yeah, I mean, we tried to tell you guys we don't have cap space, so yeah.
Is that a YouTube video?
So it's an NBA Insider, but then he also did a quick YouTube video on each team, I think. I don't know if he's done all the teams yet, but yeah. I saw like OKC and the Blazers and stuff. So I think you can watch the YouTube video, but the article is behind a paywall.
Yep. So I'm tired of people saying cap space. Eric made a whole video a month ago about the myth of our cap space and tried to break it down for people. I mean, I just wish every Blazer fan watched us, just for the sake of this fan base, knowing what's actually, like, just for educational purposes. If there's another platform out there that, like, educated people on this type of stuff, then I'd hope that they watched us or them. You know what I mean? I'd be cool with them getting viewership, people watching them instead of us, because at least they're educating the fan base. But
you know what's funny?
What?
A fellow YouTuber went on a local radio station today and talked about how we're going to have cap space and all this stuff as one of our assets this summer. So
let me guess, it was Danny Moran.
Yep.
When are they going to stop bringing that dude on? Dude, I like listening to 620 because I like Chad, I like Travis. It seems like every time I turn on that radio station, in 20 minutes, Danny Moran, I'm just turning it off immediately when I hear his name. To be honest, okay?
And he did the "don't worry, they have a plan" type crap.
They have a plan with their cap space, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Well, their plans, you see, well, if we hear that they have a plan, we'll just tell you guys instead of saying, they have a plan, just trust me, it'll work itself out. I know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to tell you. God, I can't stand that. And people listen to that, and then they come spewing that we have... God.
Well, I mean, the plan is quite obviously to get Grant, and they're going to say, like, see, I told you how to plan, Grant's the answer. Because that's the guy.
Yeah,
who says,
if
like,
he
Grant's
does
an
that,
Olympian,
you guys
how could anyone not want him?
Yeah, if he tries to do I told you so, that it was Jeremy Grant, you guys should just spam the link of this stream to him when this happens a month from now. You know what I mean? Like, go ahead. And that's not toxic, right? You're just spam, you're just posting a link. That's it. Go ahead and spam the link to the stream, man. Shoot, you can even timestamp it. I don't care. We don't like each other, and it's obvious. Y'all hear Sprague taking some shots at y'all this morning on 1080? Of course he was. That's why I'm not afraid to take shots.
What did he say,
I'm curious
Taylor?
to what he said, Taylor. Also, I'm still curious why you listened to him.
I never interact with Sprague, so I don't even know why he cares.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I don't know Sprague at all. I never say anything about Sprague. Dude says more about us than we say about him. We talk about their podcast, so I guess that includes him. But I gets frustrated, man. We're just waiting for this Taylor Packer comment.
Luke asks what I want TJ Warren for the mid-level exception. I'd hope we'd get him for a little less, but that's not a bad option. But if we get Grant and draft a forward and have Nas, I don't know if we necessarily need
and
to spend it on
Ingles and have Winslow.
Oh, hey, Ingles was an Olympian. We get
2 Olympians, 3 Olympians.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, man. Who else can we get? That's Olympian. That's all
can
that
we
matters.
Trade for Evan Fournier?
Sure.
He was indirectly referring to you guys, saying people need to stop listening to these platforms who are making a huge deal about the Pelicans pick and making Cronin out to be incompetent. Oh, God, that dude's such a... I don't...
I mean, we told you...
I'll say it now, I don't like the dude, but, I mean...
We told you why that is stupid logic and makes no sense, but...
Yeah. But, instead of actually having a conversation about that logic, that's why we don't like guys like that, okay? Because instead of actually explaining why the logic doesn't make sense to them, or coming back with some logical conversation, and this has been direct conversations with people like that who work in media, direct conversations with guys like Dan Meringue. It's never a freaking conversation. Basically, they know what's up. If you don't listen to them or agree, you're a moron. It's never an actual conversation. It's never any actual logical discourse. Eric can spell out extremely sound logic as to why it makes no sense, and instead it's, you guys need to stop listening to these platforms that are making a big deal. Cronin knows what he's doing and he has a plan.
Instead, listen to us while we misinform you about how much cap space we have and stuff.
Yeah, so I guess, is he saying they shouldn't listen to Bobby Marks then? Because Bobby Marks is saying it doesn't make sense for us to pursue cap space? I mean, that's the thing. The guys like that, I can't freaking stand them, man. I can't stand them. So he can say whatever he wants about our platform. I just hate that they misinform people and then act like they are geniuses in doing so. It's just ridiculous. And we just have to fight it and fight it.
With how many advantages they have, they should not even care about us, right? But instead
they have to tell people to stop listening to us
because they can't contend with us on views and stuff.
Anyway, Greg, go watch Jack Ramsey's Greg Mock. He says, "Wow, a whole lot of angst. I logged on for Blazer Talk."
Or why don't you go back to the beginning, because this is the very end of the stream after we've been streaming for almost 2 hours. So thanks for just catching the last part and not talking about the whole hour and 45 minutes that we talked about everything else.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing, is other people talk about us or talk about other platforms, right? So we'll respond. I don't care, man. I've tried to play nice with guys like that, and they'll disrespect us no matter what. So if they don't agree with your opinion, you're a moron. That's how they look at things, right? That's the thing, is if somebody wants to disagree with your opinion, all I'm going to ask them is, okay, provide a logical basis. And the thing is if they don't provide sound enough logic, I can argue with my own logic as to why it's why I disagree, as to why I think it's incorrect. Okay? With them, if you don't agree, they won't even argue it logically. If you don't agree, you're just a moron. And I'm tired of people with platforms that go about things that way. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And then people will say, oh, well, you never think you're wrong. It's like, I sit here and try and explain my logic.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm going to think my opinions are correct. Everybody thinks their opinions are correct. If they thought their opinion was wrong, they wouldn't have that opinion. So I sit here and try and explain my logic behind all my opinions. And then people either don't listen to them and it gets frustrating, or it's not an actual conversation. And it's the whole situation with people with you. Like, you'll explain why it doesn't make sense, and they don't want to listen. Because they don't want you to, they don't want to think you're right. It'll turn into, oh, well, CJ just sucks, and Olshek put us in this mess, and it's a bunch of just BS.
And then somehow I'm a jerk and I interact with people like.
And it's not, their responses aren't based on anything you said or any logic that you spelled out, Eric. It's not based on anything you bring forth. It's not an actual conversation, okay? And then that gets frustrating, and then we're the assholes because we think we know it all. But with them, it's not an actual conversation. We just try and have actual conversations with people. So, and if you want to bring logic and actually listen to what we have to say, and you have a different viewpoint, and you want to bring logic to that viewpoint, and you have some logic, and it's, not completely biased, and we can have a conversation, we can hear each other out, cool. Absolutely fine with that. Too many people with platforms, if you don't agree with them, you're a moron, and that's it.
Well, yeah, so I made that comment that I feel like Cronin got out negotiated because if they were willing to give up a lottery pick for CJ, like why did the protections get worse the better they did? And I had some guy tell me like, you're the guy who thought the Blazers were going to be good and that Stotts was a bad coach, so why would I listen to anything you say? Like, what does that have to do with what we're talking about, right? And then that's all it became.
If you're ever wrong on anything, Eric, I'm not going to listen to you.
Even though I've admitted it, I'll do it again here.
Here's the thing. Everybody with a platform has been wrong on this team, so I guess he's going to listen to nobody? I don't understand.
I was wrong about the team this year. I thought they were going to be good. They sucked. They were terrible. I was wrong. I don't know.
I can sit here and explain why I thought the team was going to be better and why they struggled. And I've done it. And it's very logical. And the reason we thought the team was going to be good was logical. And their struggles weren't just due to height. It's easy to sit here and say, you don't have to watch a game. You just can look at their starting lineup and say, oh, they're starting a guy that's 6'3" at the shooting guard position and 6'3" at the small forward position. So obviously they couldn't defend off of height. You don't have to watch basketball to make that opinion. We saw this team struggle. We saw this team start 10-1 at home and 0-10 on the road, right? And we saw the reasons and the differences between their start at home and their start on the road. And we can sit here and we can talk about that. And we can discuss that. And discuss what happened, what actually happened.
Yeah. And, I mean... So the Blazers were obviously not good. Like you said, it was a mixed results. They had some good moments, but mostly bad moments, right? And then, but Dallas, new coach, right? They were 16-18 at one point, 34 games into the season, not much worse than we were at one point, or not much better than we were. Boston was under 500, like 30 plus games into the season, almost 40 games into the season, I believe. I think they were like 18-19 or something like that, maybe even longer into the season before they started getting it together under a first-year coach. The Pelicans have a new head coach. They made the playoffs, but they struggled throughout the year, all that kind of stuff. And then I see all these comments like, Cronin deserves a chance, but Chauncey sucked this year, and we're not going to go anywhere with him because he made Rocco worse and he made Norm worse and all that kind of stuff. It's like Dame like battled hard. Like you got to give him credit for trying at least, but like he just didn't have it, and the team just didn't buy in. And for some reason, it didn't work with the players he had, but he also wasn't given that same chance that Willie Green, Ime Udoka, and Jason Kidd got to keep at it throughout the year to see if it got better, right? Because that was about the time Dame goes down when those teams started playing well, right? So we don't know if Dame's fully healthy and if there was a point. Because Boston had some, like, closed door meetings where they were all mad at each other. They're talking about trading Jaylen Brown and how Tatum and Brown can't coexist and they got to get rid of one of them, right? And it's never going to work out. And Ime Udoka stuck with his philosophies and got them to, I want to say they were one of the best, if not the best, defense in the league, right? So we don't know what would have happened if Chauncey would have had his full complement of players with a healthy Dame and, despite early season struggles, sticking with his plan, and maybe he turns it into something later in the season. Now, that's not excusing my result or my prediction, because like I said, I was wrong. And no matter what was the reasoning behind it, I would stand by saying it was wrong, and I believe that. But I don't agree that we know anything about Chauncey, good or bad. I mean, you can point out good or bad moments from the season. I felt like he gave up on some of his things, or kind of gave in and was a little too lenient on some of his defensive schemes and offensive plays and sets and stuff. I thought he gave up on that, or let the players dictate what they wanted to do a little too much early in the season instead of harping on what he wanted. And I feel like later in the season, he was excellent at developing young players and giving them a chance and trying to bring out the skills that he wants to see in them. So I think there's some good and the bad, but I don't think anyone can sit here right now and say Chauncey is for sure going to be a good coach or Chauncey is for sure going to be a bad coach. I just don't think we know enough information with what he was given this year.
Yep. Tilly says it's crazy how we are all fans of the same team and want the same things mostly, but all the different ideas surrounding how to get us there differ so much that it causes such a rift in the fan base. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the different ideas that cause the rift in the fan base. It's just how people go about, their ideas and how they go about other people's ideas. That's the thing, is any of my opinions, I'm just going to try and back up with logic. And opinions I disagree with, I'm going to explain the logic as to why I disagree with them and why I think they're wrong. Okay, and I'm going to try and go in as much depth as possible and explain things. If it's a CBA-related reason why we disagree with it, we'll explain the CBA. We'll come out with a whole video. Eric came out with a whole video on the myth of our $60 million of cap space and why it doesn't make sense to do so and that sort of thing, because we've taken the time to study the CBA. Like, all of our stuff, we try and make knowledge-based, logic-based, and facts-based, right? And sometimes, when it comes to opinions on how players are good, it's obviously very arbitrary. But that's the thing, is if people watch Jeremy Grant and think he's a good on-ball defender, we'll point out, metrics don't agree with that. But obviously metrics don't paint the whole picture, and I'll say that. So I want to know, why do you think he's a good defender? And it's a conversation. And with other people, it's just not a conversation. If you disagree with them, you're a moron, you're a clown, you're a bozo. They'll even tell you that. Why do you think we don't like some of these people? Is because that's what they've said to us, because we didn't like Stotts. That's basically where it all started for us. And basically you don't know what the hell you're talking about if you didn't like the coach, is basically the energy that we got. And that's made us more motivated as streamers. And now, people need to stop listening to them. Well, people are listening to us. I wonder why. So that's why there's a rift, is just how people go about it, man. And it gets frustrating. We rarely rant on it anymore. We used to rant on it a lot year one, because that's when it was peak and we didn't have much of a platform, so people disrespected us even more. But now it's a situation where it gets, people still act the same way, and it's ridiculous. And we've tried having conversations with those people, and they've shown that they're just going to be condescending and think you're a moron no matter what, even if you try and have a fair conversation with them. So, some people will try and say it's us. I don't think it's us. We've tried, and that's just the way it goes. So, we've tried with numerous people that don't like us, and they just don't like us because we think differently and we don't take their crap.
Yep. And I mean, honestly, I've not been calling anyone out on Twitter. I barely
You haven't done anything recently.
I try to reply only like you said, logic based, or calmly or whatever. I try not to resort to name calling unless it gets turned into there by someone else. But it's gotten to the point where all those people obviously a lot of us have blocked each other, so we don't have to see their messages. So, but you hear someone tells you about something, so you check a page and you see oh, look at these Uprise Olshey defenders. They're all big surprise. They're all counting on Cronin right now. That kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, like, so we're not talking about you at all, but you guys keep bringing us up, right? And like, it's so confusing to me. Okay, because the same person who posted that also was the one talking about how Billups was not a good coach, and it was the guy who did, obviously, Rocco. Oh, coincidence? Rocco has his worst year ever under Billups, right? That kind of stuff. So, like, it makes no sense to me because when we were being critical of the coach, they all blamed the GM and said the GM was not giving him the right roster and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
But now that there is a nice guy as a GM and a coach that people don't necessarily want to like from the beginning, I mean, some of that is reasonable, and I have no problem with that if you do feel strongly about him not being shouldn't have been hired or whatever. But this isn't a guy who cared about that at the beginning. He just cared about the coaching. So it's just kind of weird now how those same people are criticizing the coach, but the GM should be given a pass and all this stuff. But before it was the opposite. Like, you can't criticize Stotts at all because it's the GM that's screwing him over,
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So that's the thing, is you have to actually explore things in depth and have reasons for them. You know what I mean?
It's
Beyond
nuanced too, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a very nuanced conversation, and people ignored a lot of nuance with it. I mean, that's the thing, is, oh, Rocco really struggled this year, automatically Chauncey's fault, right? Whereas if it was Stotts, it would have been, oh, well, Rocco isn't a good on-ball defender, and Olshey should have known that. So that's the thing, is where bias comes into play, where it just feels like a lot of people care too much about...
Olshey shouldn't have given up 2 picks for him.
Yep, even though they wanted to trade at the time. You know what I mean? So it would have been the same thing. Like, people wanted to trade a lot for Aaron Gordon, but Aaron Gordon struggled tonight. If we were in the playoffs and Aaron Gordon was playing like that, they would have said it's a bad trade. Olshey made a mistake, even though they wanted to trade at the time. So that's the thing, is it's a double standard, and that's why I legitimately sit here and just, if you disagree with me, just listen to what I have to say, and let's have a conversation based on that, not, and then I'll go in depth breaking things down. That's why it gets frustrating when people just sit here and say, I'll go in depth as to all the basketball reasons why I don't like Terry Stotts, and then people will say, oh, well, it's just the backcourt. When I'm sitting here breaking down defensive schemes, offensive schemes, what plays they're running, that sort of thing, and people can't even have a conversation about that in regards to the coaching. It's just, what do you expect them to do with Dame and CJ? You know what I mean? So that's why we try and go in more depth than anybody else. Sadly, it's not too difficult to do that. It's that's the thing, is, if Cronin pulls off a great trade in the summer, we're going to like him. We don't want to dislike Cronin. We wanted Olshey gone too. So it's not like we're sitting here wanting to hate on Cronin. But I definitely think there's people sitting here that want to like Cronin because of how much they hated Olshey, and Cronin's a nice guy. And if they can explain in logical reasons, with logical reasoning, why we're being too hard on Cronin, okay, I'll try and listen. But they got to listen to what Eric says, where it doesn't logically make sense that the Lakers pick didn't back up the Pelicans one, considering the Pelicans were willing to give up the 8th, 9th overall pick at the time of the trade, and backing that up with the 8th or 9th overall pick if it's the Lakers. Why can't we do that if the trade works out for them and they make the playoffs? Whereas, Eric went in a whole logical tangent, a good tangent, about why it doesn't make any sense why Cronin couldn't have negotiated that as part of a deal earlier. And if people want to have a conversation and disagreement based on that logic and actually talk about the reasoning that Eric provided, that would be a respectful conversation. And, maybe in the end you could agree to disagree. But the problem is it never actually goes that deep with people because they don't actually listen to us. They don't actually listen to the reasoning, man, because they have their preconceived notions and they're not going to budge. And in the end, it's CJ sucks. How could you expect anything more? They were lucky anyway to get value, and that's where people are going to finish. That's where they're going to end up. So that's why there's a rift. That's why it's so frustrating with a lot of people. And I mean, like a guy like Chad Doohan, man, we disagree a lot, but now he obviously respects what we do. and it doesn't become personal. And he's actually called me before, and we've had a phone conversation, and he's actually, like, I could tell, like, listen to what I had to say and wanted to know what I had to think. You know what I mean? So that's why I respect Chad doing, even though I vehemently agree with him on numerous things in regards to the team. And but like, I respect a guy like that, you know. And he was one of the guys that we were beefing when we first started things, but we've grown from there. So that's the thing, is anybody we have pretty much anybody we have an issue with, if they're just willing to hear us out, I'm willing to hear them out, and I'm willing to have a conversation with that, and we can move past that, and things can be fine. Like, I'm not sitting here wanting to have a grudge against certain people, and I'm not sitting here wanting drama with certain people. It's just about how they go about things.
Well, he's a big Broncos fan, Chad doing, and so I thought, like, we could have a conversation about how, like I mentioned earlier, the conditions of NFL trades, get better and stuff, and so we had this long back and forth, which was pretty respectful.
I didn't really read it,
And then at the end this morning, he was just like, "But CJ was a negative asset, and there's nothing we could do," type thing. And I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna stop." So
I mean, see, like, even that though is fine, you know, if you just have a
But I didn't like ever turn it negative or anything. Like, I was trying to be respectful, and of course he had some of his followers coming at me, but whatever.
Yeah, but see, like, if conversations just went like that, there wouldn't be a rift, there wouldn't be a problem. Because like, I could talk with Stephen Vaughn, who works at 620, and we disagree on numerous things, but like, I can tell he respects me and I respect him. Dude's play college ball, dude knows basketball. Like, we just disagree on some things. Like, I can respect that. So it's never been a thing about not respecting people who disagree with us. Like, because Steven disagrees with a number of different things, and we'll have a conversation with him on it, and we'll be fine. Like, and he knows that, and we know that, and, you know, like, it's all good. It's not that big of a deal if you're just a okay human being in your interactions with people. So, but that's why I can't stand other people, is because they're, you know, that's not how it goes with them. So anyway, there
was a donation we missed from Sean Dawes.
Oh, sorry, Sean. What's up, man?
£5, I think. Says, respect, your time and effort is much appreciated, especially passing along all your thoughts and knowledge. Well, we'd be nothing without you guys watching, so we appreciate that back.
Yep, appreciate you, Sean. Thank you for the dono, man. Taylor says, what's with the divide? Do these other guys just have actual team connections and they're like in the establishment, whereas y'all are like independent outsiders to them? Well, I mean, one of the guys...
That's kind of the case, yeah.
That's kind of the case, but one of the guys, before he had any sort of connections, it was like that, okay? If you've watched me long enough, you know who that is. Yeah. And it was like that way when we would talk ball with him before we had a platform or he had a platform. So, and other people felt that way as well, you know? So, is what it is, man. I mean, it's not all that. Some guys are just jerks. And, yeah. I mean, I have my moments too, but I try to hear people out if they just want to actually, like, have a conversation just based on the facts, based on the logic. I've started just asking people questions, like the people that are saying, "Oh, all this cap space flexibility." I've just started asking people questions like, "Okay, what do you want him to do, or what do you expect him to do?"
I just ask how much cap space do they have, and then usually the answer is, "I don't know. It's just I know they have a lot," or like I just know they have some, like, and that's like, and then we'll re-sign Nurk and Ant, and then we'll still have a little bit of cap space to sign whoever we want. We'll sign Miles Bridges.
Just ask them, okay, why do you think that? Where did you hear that? Because it's actually not correct. Like, if you I try and talk with people like that, but most of the times I don't know. It tests the patience, and I'm still trying to be as patient as possible when it comes to just random people and whatnot. So anyway. We've talked about this long enough. We're 2 hours in. Yeah. Anything else for the stream?
No, thanks everyone for watching. And do with that information what you will. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not.
If you don't know what information we're talking about, watch the start of the stream again.
And that's the. I mean, I'll just wrap my part of it up by saying that's the other reason why that guy in particular was so frustrating to deal with, is because he's always had that. I know stuff you don't know, but like that's all he's like you'll have a conversation about the coach, and he'll be like, "Well, I know something about him that you don't know because I'm an insider," and then you call him out like that's a lame argument. Like, what does that mean? That has nothing to do with the discussion, and to be like, "I didn't say I knew everything. I'm privy to information that you can't understand," and stuff like that. It's like, cool, awesome discussion. Have a good one, dude.
Yep.
He flat out told his listeners viewers that I know things. I just know things. Like I'm sorry, but I don't want to say it, but like I know things you guys don't. It's that simple.
If
he
I know
actually
something,
told people that.
that's so. How do people? Where's the enjoyment in that? Right? Like if I know something, I'm gonna try and. Like, if I know something that I think other people don't, I'm going to try and, like, bring that to them and maybe educate them or, like, hey, like, what do you think about this? This is something that I heard. You know, I don't have sources like that, but it's almost like, we know the CBA and whatnot, and I know that a lot of people in here, you know, don't know the CBA, at least like us. But I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, I know the CBA and you don't, or I know the CBA and you guys just don't understand. I'm just going to try and explain it so that people do understand, and then we can all understand. You know what I mean? Like, it's frustrating when people have some certain level of knowledge or think they have some certain level of knowledge or information, and it becomes a situation where they just use that to make themselves seem smarter or seem better than others.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's just like, I don't know. If I explain something to someone and they still don't understand, like I've had plenty of people like DM me or whatever, and I'll try to explain it, and I'll keep explaining it, and I'll try to do it. But like if you explain something to someone and they're still like, "No, idiot! I saw Woj tweet that they still have 60 million in cap space." And I'll be like, again, this is why they don't. And they're like, you're delusional and stuff like that. Those are the people who will then say like, we never listen to differing opinions, right? And it's like, dude, I just tried to explain it to you. I literally broke it down, and you're saying like I'm lying or something. Like that's stupid. So like I don't have any respect for those kind of people. But yeah, if you just don't understand it, like honestly, my DMs are always open. Like feel free to contact me if you have a question about anything. Basketball or life related on either Discord or Twitter. Like I'm always answering questions from people, and I like interacting with you guys, and I like sharing this knowledge. That's why when I heard this stuff, I wanted to first make sure it was okay to share, and second of all, I wanted to make sure that like I don't want to keep something that I have from you guys either. So.
Yeah, see, and if they said it wasn't okay to share or something, I fully know that you wouldn't come on here and say, I know things that you guys don't. Like you just wouldn't say anything.
Guys, and I'm not telling.
Like you would maybe tell me like, oh, I heard something, I just can't share it, and then maybe you don't even share it with me because you can't, but I know that's because, you know, whoever you're getting the information from told you can't share it, and it's not, you know, that's just the way it is. Like, you know what I mean? But I know for sure that you wouldn't come on here and try and make yourself seem important, that you know things that you couldn't share. Because what's the need for that? It's like you're compensating for something, you know what I mean? But it's like, I know that you and me, we're confident enough in our knowledge and what we have to provide as streamers, as content creators and whatnot, that it's like we don't need to try and make ourselves seem better than we are or more important than we are, you know what I mean? Like that's why I hang my hat on calling it like it is and trying to use logic in every opinion, every conversation, and whatnot. So, AJ asked Tori, will you ever be able to say who Dame wanted? Okay, I guess I did that once, but it wasn't to see myself seem more important. No, I couldn't share that. Dang.
Yeah,
caught me red-handed.
Oh, man, you just
I shouldn't have said that. No, I said you never do that. I didn't say I'd never do that, because I did that. But, I mean, but that's the thing, is I hope people know that I'm just honest enough that, like, if I say that, it's not like I'm trying to, you know, prop myself up. Like, I legitimately did, and I was legitimately told that I couldn't share it. It's a guy that we're not gonna get, assuming this Jeremy Grant stuff happens, and I don't know if it was correct. Okay, like, and I'll sit here and say I don't really have sources. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was correct or not. I have a couple people I talk to that talk to other people. Like, I'll sit here and be 100% upfront. I won't sit here and say, yeah, I know things that you don't, and, you know, I can't tell you, like, I don't know. It's different. Because I'll admit that I don't have sources. I won't sit here and pretend like I have a bunch of sources. And that's the thing. If you have a bunch of sources, or sit here and pretend like you have a bunch of sources, every now and then you should be able to bring something to the forefront. Right? I don't have much sources, so if I hear something, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm hearing something.
Right.
And if I can't share it, it's like, dang, I can't share it with y'all, but I heard something.
Yeah.
You know, but it's more like a humble point of view, because I don't have sources, man, and I'll sit here and admit it. So it is the complete opposite, in my opinion. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Connor with the $20 donation. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, shout out Connor, my guy Connor. What's up, Connor? $20 dono. He says, I can't let someone out dono me when I'm in chat. So yeah, PS, all this cap space people think we have will just go towards players we already have. Then people will pull the Pikachu face when we don't make a splash in free agency. Here's the thing too, is that people don't talk about. I appreciate the $20 dono, Connor. That's big. Outside of guards, this free agent class sucks. There's really no good forwards to even... Like, the one good forward to potentially go after is Miles Bridges, but Charlotte's just going to match him. Go look up this year's free agent class and look at forwards, which is the position we need. There's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at taking a chance on, like, a TJ Warren. I mean, Kyle Anderson has some ties to some of the... has the same agent as some of the players we just did a favor for, so maybe someone like that. But if we get Jeremy Grant, do we really need Kyle Anderson? You mentioned Nick Batum in your video. Tori dropped a mailbag on the other channel, so go check that out if you haven't watched it. Yep. But yeah, I mean, there's some, but like, yeah, it's not like no game-changing ones really.
Yep. I mean,
there's definitely guys. Unlike previous years, there's a lot of mid-range options that we could probably get by slightly overpaying them and giving them the MLE, which is different than a lot of years. But they're still not like much better than like a Derek Jones or whatever, you know. So yeah, it's not going to really change or alter our franchise, I don't think, unless we take a chance on someone like Jalen Smith or something like that, and he pops. Like, I think that would be a much better route than just signing a guy, like kind of an average player that has flaws, you know?
He's more of a big, he's a big and not a forward, though,
right,
to
right.
me. Like, he's
no,
like
I know.
I just can slide down a power
I just
forward.
meant like a player that still has some potential upside.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd be intrigued with them. Yeah. I'm just trying to portray the fact that there's no, like, the positions we need forwards, and there's really no, there's a lot of forwards in the draft. It would have been nice to have the Pelicans pick, but in terms of free agency, Miles Bridges, Charlotte's just going to match whatever. The next guy after it, like, you're looking at Batum, Otto Porter Jr., like, role players, but guys you could get with the MLE you don't need cap space for. Yeah. So I don't understand the whole notion. And it's like, I asked somebody who they want, and it's like, oh, well, I want to go out and sign Levine. It's like, he's not going to leave Chicago, and why do we need Levine? We have Dame, we have Simons, we have Hart as our three-guard rotation. Why do we need Levine? And we'd have to maybe cut Ant to get Levine, and then don't have an MLE or traded player exceptions, and it's like, Levine ain't going to leave anyway? How's that a sound plan?
Yeah.
So... yeah, the free agency plan doesn't really make much sense. Jing Veloso said, when y'all stream it again? Thursdays. We're streaming Mondays, Thursdays, live at 9:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep, every Monday, Thursday, unless there's some thing like the draft lottery that week. We'll obviously do a stream Tuesday live during the lottery. Hopefully we're celebrating afterwards because there's not much else this summer to celebrate. Of course, if any trades happen, we'll be live shortly after to break them down, and then look for videos on the other channel from Tori. And so yeah, but definitely every Monday, Thursday for the off season is when we do our videos.
Yep, and if you haven't watched the content video, if you haven't really been paying attention, go to the main channel on the homepage of that. The video will be there, kind of outlining the content and streams and whatnot.
And then the one last thing I want to say, if anyone's interested in hooping, not this weekend, but the following weekend or Thursday, Friday, Saturday-ish, Dro is going to be in town and he wants to get together to play basketball. I don't know if you're going to be able to find a gym in time or not, but
what are the dates on that again?
It's the 27th through the 30th or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can give me the exact dates, I'll look at it for sure.
Okay. So yeah, if anyone wants to meet up with us and play, even if it's just like for fun outside somewhere, hopefully the weather's okay. Just hit me up on Twitter or Discord.
Yep, let me know if you want to get dunked on. Anyway, by Eric, not me.
Yeah, right.
Eric will be doing his cast-based video after the lottery, Roman, so that'll be... Eric does that every year. This will be the third year in a row he's done it, so and I'll do the graphics for that.
I want to do some trade talks, but it seems kind of like, what are we going to talk about?
Just talk about how... Just do 3 videos about how we're going to trade for Jeremy Grant and make them all the same.
Yeah.
And I can switch up the thumbnail and the title and make it super clickbaity.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so... I don't know. That's a wrap for the stream. Thank you to everybody who donated. Definitive, Sean, Connor, and then there's somebody else I forget. Sorry for forgetting you, but I appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Longer stream. We're going to keep them a little bit shorter, but this was obviously the first live stream of the offseason that wasn't talking about a playing game. So, we'll talk some NBA playoff basketball and that sort of thing. Just interesting to hear what Eric had to share with us. And... we'll see when it happens and see how it happens and what the compensation is for Detroit. So if you missed any of that talk, definitely watch back the beginning of the stream. And with that, any final words?
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and hope to catch you on Thursday.
Yep, we will catch you then. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.